Right, so solving each thing for x, I don't know, we've been solving for x a bunch of times in this packet already. So just easy mistakes to make for something like this. All right, so just make sure you're distributing first. This is one way of doing it, right? But I still draw these little arrows, or I try to have students draw the little arrows. It makes it harder to make a mistake. So I haven't touched the 3 yet, but I did do -2 times x. So that's going to be minus 2x. -2 times -1. A negative times a negative is a positive. And then I haven't touched anything on this other side, 2 plus 4x. Good math habits kind of drawing everything out and kind of bundling down until you get an answer, not just running a bunch of random numbers all over the place. Your teachers will be a lot happier if you can kind of keep things organized for them. So now let's combine like terms if we're moving stuff around. I have a 3 plus 2. So I have a 5 minus 2x, 2 plus 4x. I always like to move my smaller value of x over to the larger side. So I would say, well, what's smaller, -2 or +4? -2 is, so I'm going to move this over because, I'm a fan of working with positive numbers. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides, which means that since my x's are over here, I want to take this 2 away. So -2, so I'm going to get 3 equals 6x. 6 times x. So to undo multiplication, we divide. And so x equals 3 over 6, which we can reduce down to 1 over 2. Or you could always check that answer. And when you're doing work like this, like I would recommend just checking it, right? So it doesn't hurt, like use technology. Even if it says you can't use a calculator, check your answer with technology. Get immediate feedback that something is right or that something is wrong. All right, so example B looks a little bit intimidating, but just same idea. Let me distribute my -3. So I'm going to get 16x that I didn't touch. I'm going to get minus 3 times 4 is 12x, minus -3 times 7. That's going to be -21. Over here, I'm going to distribute this negative to both pieces. Didn't touch that 6x, but I'm going to get minus 2x. Negative times positive 21 is minus 21. Let's combine on both sides. So we can combine those like terms. 16x minus 12x is going to be 4x. Didn't touch the 21. 6x minus 2x is 4x minus 21. Oh my, look at what we have here. So we could keep solving, but notice that this left side is the same as this right side. Any value of x that you plug in, 4 times something minus 21, is always going to be the same as 4 times that same thing minus 21. So this is all real numbers. So any value of x would satisfy or solve this question. Sometimes we call this infinite solutions, infinitely many solutions. So that would be our answer here. Right over here, same thing. Let's just divide this one half to both pieces. I get an x plus 6, half of x minus half of 4. So that's 2. I would look, so there's a couple of things here. So you can like subtract half on both sides, but a lot of students just not fans of fractions. I get it. Not me, but whatever. Some people are. So before we kind of do anything with the x's, notice that I can move that 2 over to the other side. So I could add 2, I could add 2, right? So x plus 8 equals a half of x. All right, so then one thing we could do, if we multiply one side of the equation by something, we got to do it to the other. So if I want to get rid of a half, well, I could multiply a half by 2. But if I multiply this side by 2, I got to multiply that side by 2. All right, so now we've kind of created a distribution question, 2x plus 16. But over here, 2 times a half is just equal to 1. So we can kind of look at this now and say, well, look at what I've done. I've turned this back into a question that is only working with whole numbers. And for some students, that might be a little bit easier. Right, so in this situation, right, you could subtract x, right, subtract x if you want to move it over, or actually probably the better way, if we're being honest with each other, just subtract 2x and deal with the negative. So we would end up with 16, x minus 2x, 1 minus 2 is negative x. Divide both sides by -1 or multiply both sides by -1 and clear out those negatives. And we're going to be left with x equals -16. Now, if you want to do this without fractions, right, if I look at this step right here, so same thing, right? Move your small fractions over to your other side, right? So if I have x plus 6, half of x minus 2, so I can subtract a half of x, subtract a half of x. So I have one full x, and I'm taking away a half of it, so I have a half of x left over. Since my x's are going to be on this side, I'm going to move this 6 over to the other side with subtraction. So those cancel. -2 minus 6, that's going to be -8. So now I'm either multiplying by 1/2, and I could divide by -1/2, but that's kind of a weird way to do it. Or I can say I want to multiply both sides by something that clears out the half. And again, we're multiplying by 2, just like we did in the previous question. 2 times a half is x. -8 times 2, -16. Crazy. Exact same answer that we got doing it the other way.